They're blurring the lines of editorial and advertising. From the Wall Street Journal, here's David Lennon, Tastemade, Oren Katzif, and from the Foundry, Chris Hersick. They're joined by Hill Holliday's Michael Grimes.
Good morning. Thanks, guys, for being here.
Thank you.
So today is all about the path to 2020 and looking ahead. But before we do that, first thing I wanted to do is just take a quick look back, specifically to 2015, which this is the year where I think branded content and publishers really started to hit their stride as consumers saw it day in and day out, started to engage with it, share it with friends. And I think as a result, it really started to reach public consciousness in a way that last slide just showed. South Park even devoted a whole episode to this idea of native content and branded content partnerships. And knowing South Park, they didn't do it in too flattering of a light. I think what they did was address the audience skepticism that often comes with these sorts of partnerships. So that was a year ago. I feel like we've come a long way since then. Mm-hmm. Over the past year or so, is there still this baseline of audience skepticism about branded content, and particularly when it appears alongside editorial content? And how do you reconcile that in the stories that you try and tell? Chris, I'll let you chime in on that.
I think the interesting thing over the past year is that we've seen the growth in branded content. I think everybody realizes they need to do it. They just don't always know how they need to do it and how to work with us or what they need to do. So I think they've bought into the concept. But I think the idea of what exactly they need to do and how they need to execute it is still the work in progress.
David, how do you think about, knowing your audience for Wall Street Journal, creating stories that will resonate with them in a way that does feel like it's an authentic experience?
I think it's got to be honest. I think it's got to be something that you don't hide the brand. And I think a lot of native, when it first came out, did that. And I think what we wanted to do was make content that was that engaging, that people knew it was paid for, but that we're offering something that they're not going to get anywhere else. And so putting our lens on content and trying to do it to the excellence of the Wall Street Journal editorial was what we set out to do.
Great. So I have clips for each of these content studios that I'd like to play. So I'd like to start with the Foundry at Time Inc. We're going to roll a quick video, and then maybe you can talk a little bit about how the Foundry's set up. In particular, I know we spoke earlier about the enrolling subject matter experts to work across those properties. Yeah. So we'll watch the video, and then maybe you can speak a little bit about that.
Just a few things going on there. Yeah. So the Foundry, was really set up. We're now sort of, I would say, fully aligned with our sales team. There was a couple of changes at timing where we restructured along the category lines. And the Foundry was set up the same way. The nice thing about working with the Foundry and the Time Inc. brand, we're really the bridge between our internal brands and our marketing partners. So we are aligned. There's about 175 people now on the Foundry team. We're aligned by, we have content experts that go from beauty to travel to sports to news. We're aligned by category specific. They have teams underneath them, but they also have brands that are aligned with those categories or passion points, as we will. So somebody may work within the pharma category, but they're also working with Time Magazine or Sports Illustrated and brands that are relevant to those categories. So we're really aligned to serve the specific customers and to sort of understand the brands themselves and everything that goes into those categories.
Great example of kind of building something with this existing property in mind, Time Inc. family. Oren, you guys came at it a completely different way with Tastemade and kind of from the start had branded partnerships in mind, if I'm...
We did, exactly. So Tastemade founded just about 4 years ago, and really how we started creating content was with brands. I was head of programming, but sort of also head of ad sales in that I was working directly with brands years ago, trying to create engaging, authentic video experiences that authentically integrated brand campaigns and themes into that storytelling. And so from day one, we had our original content that we did outside of brands, but I would say 50-50. The other half of what we did was directly with brands, helping them tell stories through video. And Tastemade's been a video company from day one. And you fast forward to today, and we're now doing over 2 billion views across Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, and others, and helping brands tell their stories with the Tastemade voice and lens on those platforms.
Let's watch the clip of Tastemade to get a better sense, too, of what you're talking about. That'd be great.
It's always a little dangerous to show that video right before lunchtime. So sorry if got a few of you hungry up there. But well, you can tell the common theme across everything you saw, and you saw a lot of it was with brands, some of it was without, is there's this common theme of high quality content. You look at the excitement in those tastemakers' eyes, and that's genuine. And they're able to tell authentic and fun stories through travel, through food. We believe those are two things that bind us all, not just in the US, but globally. And so our ability to tell really great stories through video, using some of the top tastemakers from all over the world to co-create content with them, and team up with brands to tell those stories, and then to tell unique stories on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or YouTube. Every platform needs its very specific way to communicate with an audience there. But our ability to do that is what's allowed us to work with so many great brands and create some of the great content you just saw.
Great. And on the subject of storytelling, you know, that David, from your perspective, I think you guys made a big splash in the branded content space with the Narcos for Netflix integration that you did, and I know that you provided a clip for us. Do you want to talk quickly about the process behind that and how that came to life?
Yeah, Netflix is a little bit like the heavyweight championship of the world in terms of branded content in some ways, and there's been a lot of great work done by who we see as competitors, and what we wanted to do was come in and try and offer something new. So I think a lot of it was down to the planning that we did with Farah Warner, who's our global editorial director, and the rest of the team in terms of how we could do something different and push it further. And I think a lot of it is to really get cheeky and take the opportunities that aren't out there and try and make them your own. So for instance, the clip we're going to show, we managed to grab for an hour the 2 stars of the show before it had aired, Javier Pina and Steve Murphy, and just get them for an hour into our studio. And ideally, we would have liked to have gone to their homes and interviewed them in their own space, but we got them in a studio, and I just got on the phone with Steve and begged him to bring as much memorabilia as possible. And what he did was turn up with his personal photo collection that he'd taken as a DEA agent. And as we were kind of tag teaming the interview with our writer, Peter Green, I started flicking through these photos and realized that we've got a photo casebook of the 2 most important days on the chase, which was the day that Escobar escaped prison and the day that he died. And so we got all freaked out, and it was like, how the hell do we put this together quickly? And what they do is they roadshow that story to FBI, DEA agents all over the country. And so we followed their route, and our filmmaker, Richard Butterworth, put together something really quick, which kind of gave you a feel of them giving that presentation, and that's what you're going to see.
Great.
I started my DA career in Austin, Texas. You know, to me, 4 ounces of coke, you know, a couple of ounces of meth we were busting the streets was great. You know, I was like, wow. When I get to Colombia, now I'm assigned the Medellin cartel investigation, 1988. I was in for a big awakening. At this point, it was about $1,000 to produce a kilo of cocaine. Once that kilo hit the market in Miami, it was going anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000. And these people were transporting between 5 to 7 airplanes on a daily basis. I mean, there was so much cash coming back to Colombia that they didn't know what to do with it. And the only name that was popping up was Pablo Escobar.
So I love that example because, you know, there's some scrappiness there, there's found footage, and it's really, you know, all in service of telling an amazing story. And granted, you had some amazing source material to work with there. But as we start to think about, you know, the theme of today and the theme of this panel in particular, that of authenticity, you know, it's a huge subject when it comes to branded content, and it's definitely one that I think is you know, front and center what we need to think about when we're creating these experiences. I know if you were to do a Google search for authenticity in marketing, it would yield about 17 million articles. So that means that more than us and just the people in this room are thinking about this. And you can just look at a sampling of headlines to see what I mean. It's just, this is top of mind for people. So as we're thinking about what it means to be authentic and telling stories on behalf of brands, you know, what are some thoughts on that? Chris, do you want to start?
Well, I mean, I think when we start talking about tying in the most effective programs or the more native ones where our brands sort of lean into the content that we're creating, and whenever we're creating that, whether it's strictly for an advertiser or with our brand integration, authenticity, whether it's in the brand voice of the client or whether it's in our brands, has to be first and foremost. We know that when consumers take something away from an experience, that they're willing to engage in that content, they're willing to click on it, they're willing to share it, they're willing to retweet it, but we have to deliver a value to them. And we have to do that, and we have to do it in a way that's personalized to them. Now more than ever, the idea of creating content that's very generalized is not effective. Mm-hmm. We have to start speaking through, and what we do is it's through the lens of what we call our passion points, through our lens of our brands. How do we connect to those consumers that love golf, that love style and fashion and beauty, or travel for that matter? So that's how we weave in our message. But we have to make sure that whatever we're creating, it's with the end consumer in mind, or reader for that matter.
Great. And Oren, I mean, you have a similar model. You're tapping into passion points. When we spoke earlier, you also mentioned data as a way to kind of validate authenticity, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. To us, I think it starts with the content creation process. We know that a lot of brands come to us because they love the way that our content looks and feels and how audiences engage with it. And so if we were to talk to a brand and then take them off course with a different team creating content just for brands, I think we would lose the authenticity. The point I'm making is that our process, whether we work with a partner or work independently, is the same. It's the same people, it's the same day-to-day process that we implement. And with data, when you do 2 billion or so views every month across all these platforms, you do get a ton of data every single day from YouTube and from all the other platforms that we're on. And so we don't have data rule everything we do. It doesn't dictate every single decision, but there is a nice marriage of art and science in everything we do. We have our gut feel on what we think our audience wants, and then we let that data kind of help guide the story. And again, we do it whether we do content independently or with our partners, and I think that's a real key to authenticity. You have to kind of execute the same playbook no matter who you're working with.
Do you ever find that you have to steer brands in a specific direction, actually using the data as a proof point?
Yeah, I think it's always a conversation. At the end of the day, we know that we have to collaborate to get to our end goal, and the brand has, has certain themes and campaign goals in mind, and we have goals in mind in terms of how we want to entertain the audience, and data is part of it. And so I think at the end of the day, if you don't have data, then it's just gut. Then you're just sort of guessing. And if you're guessing, that's not that strong. We don't think that we're very good partners if we just say, hey, we think this is good. But to the extent that we can use data to show why integration at a certain point works, or integration for X amount of time works, or this many integration points work, if we have core data that shows what works and what doesn't, we think we make ourselves better partners for the folks we work with.
Right. For the Wall Street Journal's perspective, I mean, you're working within an established brand that has over a 100-year legacy, but you're also doing something different within the larger umbrella of the Wall Street Journal. How does the whole church and state divide work there in terms of the custom studios versus the editorial?
It's absolute, and we love it because of that. I don't talk to my counterparts in editorial. We know they talk about us, but we never kind of meet in the middle. We don't discuss anything because I think the more separate we can be, the more genuine it is what we can provide. We don't want to colour any of the editorial, obviously, and I think that we want to prove to editorial, first and foremost, as well as clients, that we can produce something that's worthy of going in the paper, that's worthy of going online. And so I think the key thing is to really have faith kind of in yourself and your team to produce something that sits, in a placement that is worthy of the article that's next to it,
Have you ever had experiences where you felt like the editorialist side of the house is maybe jealous of the work you're doing because maybe you have a little bit more budget to work with?
Why do I get the tough question? All right, well, if it stays within the room. One of the highlights of releasing Cocainomics was that we got a lot of awards, and that was all great afterwards, but about a week after it launched, they have an editorial meeting, and news filtered back to us through Farah that they'd spent the hour of their editorial meeting looking at Cocainomics and trying to work out how and why we'd done it with the budget that we did it. And I think that's the kind of place that we want to be when they talk about us, confounding what they think is possible or pushing them to kind of rethink the way maybe they do things. And that was, one of the times that we did hear something back. And it's a good spot to be in, It's
great. It's very validating. It looks like we're running a little tight, so I'd like to close with just asking, knowing that we're talking about the path to 2020, really quickly, what do you see kind of down the line in terms of brands and publishers working together? Chris, we'll start with you and then work our way down.
Well, Oren hit it on a great point. I think we could probably talk about it all day, is data and proving out sort of that guttural instincts of the content that we're creating. Social insights, social listening really help to sort of drive conversations, because we know if people are asking or searching for certain topics and we provide that content, that they're naturally going to find it and they're going to engage upon it. So I think, and then using data sort of on the back end of the equation to prove out and validate the program that we just created, I think is the area that You know, we just acquired Viant, so we have all of the data to work with, and I think it's a powerful combination between the data and the 20, well, now 30-plus brands within our building. But you know, it's really become a creative and content shop within timing, which has been really interesting. And you know, working with our agency partners and our clients, it's a way that we can provide additional information, additional insights, because who knows our audiences better than our editors and our teams? And that's what we can lean in.
Oren.
Yeah, I'd say 3 words: mobile, social, global. And even more than that, I think you know, video's come a long way in just the last few years, and even the last 5 years. I think in 2020, you know, this device now is no longer just a phone, right? We joked earlier that probably the worst app on this device is the phone app, right? Everything else works better than the phone app on this thing. And so this isn't a phone, this is a digital studio in your pocket. People are communicating through video. They are sharing things in their life of the moment through video. And so we think video is just going to continue to explode, and the ability to tell great stories through video with brands, have them be social so that people don't just watch, but they actually engage. Mobile, over 70% of our views happen on this device. And global, right? The walls are broken down. There are people who are viewing your content and your brand all over the world. So mobile, social, global.
Really quick, David?
I think competition with media companies realizing that the branded content now is not something that can be an add-on. I don't really keep statistics in my head, I'm a creative, but there's 25% of media next year is supposed to be branded content. And so I think as people understand the standard that's needed, more people will invest in the creative teams and in the planning teams. And I think the quality is going to up, and that's going to see more creativity at the end of the day with the spaces that they play in, like mobile, definitely.
Great. All right, thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.